today. As we say, we are back for another month of Inspired Insights Live. I'm gonna let people hop on. It is a beautiful day here, a beautiful rainy day. Very grateful that where I am, that we're not very affected by the storm. So for anybody who is affected by it, sending lots of thoughts, prayers your way, and also good wishes to all the people out there that are supporting us and making sure that we do make it through these natural events safely as possible. So sending lots of love and light to everybody out there. This Inspired Insights Live is one that I think is really relevant for many of us attorneys. Welcome for joining. This month, for this month's live, we're talking about the creation of boundaries. And this is something that I'm working through myself. So I asked the question of, do you often feel like you're stressed, or do you often feel like you get taken advantage of by others? And the reason this is so relevant is because if you are not setting boundaries, and if you don't regularly even know how to set boundaries, then you're often going to be in this position where you feel like people are taking advantage of you. And you often feel stressed because you're feeling stressed because you have no control over outside circumstances, mainly because you haven't been able to set the boundaries to create that beautiful space of having a certain degree of control without control, so to say. And I noticed that in the legal space, many of us never learned how to set boundaries. We think that we need to always work, always be on. If we're not on, then clients won't take us, then employers won't want us. But ultimately, if you think about it, there are if you think about people that you respect, often you'll notice that those people that you respect are people that do set boundaries. And the creation of boundaries doesn't have to be something where, I guess the best example would be, a horse that is running and suddenly just stops. And that is an example of an extreme setting of boundaries where it kind of affects everybody else in a non-harmonious way. And we can set boundaries in a way that is harmonious and that other people respect. So just going back to how you can tell if you are not setting boundaries properly, you're often going to feel frustrated about how people treat you. People will only treat you the way that you allow them to treat you. And if you often feel like you're being taken advantage of, or you don't like the way that people are treating you, then that is something to look about within yourself, because you probably haven't set proper boundaries with them. They don't know how to respect you. They don't know how to treat you, because we teach others how to treat us. Secondly, you're probably feeling stressed from feeling overworked. And when you feel like you have no control over what's happening and how you're being overworked. And what are the results of this? You feel burned out. You can have sudden outbursts of emotions where you'll feel like you just feel like you have to explode. You will feel forced to create boundaries in a way that is non-harmonious, where you're just suddenly like, I'm done. I can't no more, no mas. And everyone else is like, what just happened? This person just exploded. I don't know what to do. And you're also going to start feeling resentment towards people. You'll feel resentment towards your clients. You'll feel resentment towards your family. You'll feel resentment towards your colleagues, your bosses, whoever you didn't set the boundaries with, you're going to feel resentment towards them. And how do I know this? Because I've been here. I think a lot of us never really learned how to set boundaries, or at least I didn't really learn how to set many boundaries. It's been something that I've been working on learning. And, coming through my career and different things, I know, when I first took my first legal job, I said, yes, I can do everything. And I didn't set any boundaries. I did whatever they wanted me to do. And also in different projects that I've worked on, where you have fires that come up, and when you're always available and you don't think about what you need, your inability to put yourself first and set boundaries for yourself of saying, okay, this is what I can do. This is what I can do. This is what I'm happy to do. I'm happy to give my all and do that in this place and still take care of myself. When you're able to do that and create that boundary, others will respect it. However, I've so often, and I know many of you have been in this place where I didn't even think about myself and I was just dealing with the fires. And before I knew it, I was completely burned out. I was resenting the people that I was working with because I hadn't set the boundaries and I felt like I was being completely taken advantage of. And you go down this rabbit hole. And so, in my own process of setting boundaries, I've started to discover where a lot of this come from. A lot of the time we have a fear of setting boundaries. We're afraid that if we set boundaries or if we say, this is what I can do and I can't do anymore, that people are going to turn around and say, okay, I don't want to work with you anymore. I don't want to hire you. I don't want to be with you. Whatever it is, you can apply this to all aspects of life. But it's important then to understand, like to do a little deep dive on yourself and say, is that okay? Because if if that person who wants me 24/7 all the time to my detriment, is that my ideal client? Is that someone that I want to work with? Is that job or that employer where they don't respect my need to have any personal time? Is that employer who doesn't respect any boundaries and expects me to be on 24/7? Is that my ideal job? Is that a position that I want to be in? Or can you actually start looking into, what does it look like when I respect myself and I look into like where these different fears are coming from? Because we all have fears. And I think that fear of not getting clients and essentially like a lot of those lack-based fears spawn from law school because you're afraid of getting kicked out and losing all the money you invested. And then this transfers on to like when we form careers. And there are many attorneys who actually have been able to set boundaries and have great work-life balances and everything like that. And that doesn't necessarily apply to everyone, but a lot of us have never learned how to set boundaries. And we have a boundaryless culture in law. Like, look at litigation, different types of matters. A lot of the time, there are no boundaries. Someone says jump, and everyone says how high, and it doesn't matter if everybody underneath is, their soul is crushed in the process. And we think that we need to ride with this train. And it is kind of part of the legal culture for us to have no boundaries, to work until we drop. And if that's what you want to do, more power to you. However, this conversation is for people who really want to create boundaries, who want to be able to give all that they can, because when you work until you drop and you haven't set any boundaries for yourself, you are of no use to whoever you're serving, because you can't give them your all, you can't give them your best. You're not making decisions. It's like someone who's been drinking and then they get on the road. They're not thinking clearly. They're not making proper decisions. And if you're not able to honor your boundaries and honor yourself so that you can come to whatever you're doing with your at your highest self, then essentially you're kind of giving that person a raw end of the deal. So I would think that it would be of our best interest to set boundaries. And there are different tools that we can do. So say your ideal client needs someone available 24/7, or they need to be able to have some sort of access point to you, or whatever it is. We have so many different things through technology. There's a company I can definitely recommend, MoneyPenny. We're working on something coming up next month, so stay tuned for something exciting. Where they have a really bespoke answering service. So when you have clients that do need that hands-on 24-hour care, you can still attend to them while honoring your own personal boundaries. So there are ways around it. But for us, how do we create boundaries? And I call this Creating Boundaries 2.0 because, guys, I'm still working on it. I'm still learning. And it's beautiful to share this with you because I think that's the point of being the Inspired Attorney, is because I'm also learning and growing, and I'm sharing my insights with you as I learn and grow. We're all in this together. So how do we create boundaries 2.0? Discover yourself and your needs. Start looking at situations where you have felt really stressed out, where you felt like people were taking advantage of you, where you felt that uncomfortable feeling that is associated with those two things that I mentioned, and start examining, okay, what's going on here? What was causing it? So for example, if you were feeling really stressed out because you felt like felt like maybe things were not organized for someone in a matter that you're working on, or you felt like you were giving all you could, but they felt like you weren't giving any more. It's important for you to say for yourself, okay, so like if you know that you have certain things coming up, you can say, okay, this is what I can do. This is what I'm happy to contribute, and this is what I can do. And you set those boundaries and you communicate them to others. This is one of the hugest parts about creating and setting boundaries, is communicating your boundaries to others. It doesn't have to be because sometimes you can communicate boundaries in a way that's off-putting to others. In my learning journey, in communicating my boundaries, you don't communicate them in like a questioning way. You just say, this is what I can do. I'm happy to do it. I'm available during these times. And then when you're not available, you're just not available. If you're then available afterwards and you want to say, hey, things changed, I'm happy to jump in, or whatever, however you can help, then that's great. But it's important for us to not only set and communicate our boundaries, but then also stick to them. If you say to someone, for example, I can only do this until then, or between then and then, or I'm available to meet you between then and then, and I only have this time period, but then you stay on a call or whatever it is, way past that time period, that person then just learned from you, because we teach others how to treat us. That person just learned from you, okay, well, maybe they said that we have a meeting from this to this time, but they often go longer. And then that's okay if that's not a boundary that you want to set. If you're like, I have a meeting set for half an hour, but I'm buffering in another 30 minutes for whatever, and you want to often go over those things, that's fine. But if you're getting upset that people are taking advantage of your time, but you're not the one honoring your time, you've taught them not to honor your time. So we need to be able to set and honor the boundaries that we set for ourselves. And we set them with love, right? So this is like kind of what I was mentioning beforehand. When we set boundaries with kind of like the horse approach, the horse putting its, or a dog or whatever, but I think of like a horse that's running and suddenly stops. When we set boundaries in that like sudden stop mode, mainly because you're frustrated and fed up, everyone else is caught unawares. It's like you've been allowing things to build up and nobody has any way of dealing with it because they didn't expect it. They were taught by you that you didn't have boundaries in that respect and they can do whatever. And suddenly when you set those boundaries and explode, everyone's kind of like, what do we do? They don't know what to do about it. So that will happen. It'll probably happen as you're learning to set boundaries, but learn from it. And so that's why I say by setting boundaries with love in advance, because then you avoid those situations. And yeah, so like I said, when you're wishy-washy, others will feel it. So it's important for us to really set those boundaries and stick to them, and then also evaluate, because sometimes you can say, maybe especially in the beginning when you're setting boundaries and you've been just so burned out, you set them maybe smaller than you want to set them, and then you could just modify moving forward, test the waters, figure it out. But really, just like anything that I talk about, it's such a process of discovering ourselves, and we can always change, and give yourself the ability to change and evolve as the being that you are, and evolve your boundaries. But guys, I know that there's a lot of chatter about about narcissism and all these other things, and I think that there are valid points in there, but I think we really need to honor ourselves and what our needs are so that we can show up as our best selves. And when we show up at our best selves, everyone benefits. And part of that is honoring boundaries and not being unduly stressed. Stress will happen, and it's all a matter of learning. But when we really learn to set and honor our boundaries, everyone benefits. So yeah, so that is this month's Inspired Insights Live. Would love to hear what your takeaways were from this one. If you have any suggestions of what you want me to talk about for future ones, we do this once a month, the live. If you wanted more, let me know. I'm happy to hop on here more. I do the once a month. But yeah, and whatever you guys need, I'm here for you. I'm sending you guys lots of light, luck. Have an amazing week. I want to hear any wins that you have in setting boundaries. I'm always here for you. If you need me, you can DM me. message me, send me an email at sharon@theinspiredattorney.co. I'm here for you guys, sending you all positive vibes. Take care of yourselves and make it a good week. Bye, y'all. Thanks for being here.